Hello and welcome to the Underhive. We are back with some more How to Command the Death Guard. In this series, we're going to take a look at every aspect of the Death Guard. So whether you're looking to get more out of your army or you're thinking of joining Nurgle's feculent festivities, then there's something here for you. In this episode, we're going to continue looking at the elite slot. So let's jump in and take a look at the forgotten members of the elite slot. The forgotten members that I refer to are the Hellbrute and the Death Guard Possessed. And they are forgotten for, I would say, good reason, in that they don't offer anything that another unit in the army can't do, arguably better. So let's jump in and take a look at the Hellbrute to begin with. Hellbrute has a 6-inch move, 3-up weapon skill, ballistic skill, no bracketing, 6 strength, 7 toughness, 8 wounds, 5 attacks, 8 leadership, and a 3-up save. He does have Armour of Contempt because he is Heretic Astartes, and he does have Monstrous Resilience, which is -1 from the damage. Now, other Hellbrutes have this too, but the rest of your army has this by default. So my point here is not that the Hellbrute is bad on face value. Certainly in the likes of Thousand Suns, they're a reasonable pick because there isn't necessarily something else in that codex that can fill that role. But with a Hellbrute, you've got the choice of Plague Marines with a variety of heavy weapons to deal similar damage. You've got the heavy vehicles you can bring in the form of the Blight Hauler and the Plague Burst Crawler. And the Hellbrute sadly compares unfavourably to all of those things. Even with the reduction to 105, taking it at its base with the Plasma Cannon and the Fist, it's still less wounds than a squad of 5 Plague Marines, less able to hide and get the benefit of cover outside of some dens where you're shooting through a forest or what have you. But it's certainly going to struggle to get into buildings unless they don't have many walls whatsoever. So it's really going to struggle to get the same level of cover as the likes of Plague Marines, and it just doesn't have the same output as the other vehicles you could pick. We'll take a look at the profile here, but ultimately my opinion is pretty clear already. So at the bare minimum, you would have the Plasma Cannon, which is 36-inch, heavy D3, always counts as being overcharged, strength 8, AP -3, damage 3, or still can only deal 1 mortal wound on a roll of 1. It is blast, so against a squad of 6, you are going to get the full 3. You could swap that out for the likes of a multi-melter, which I think is probably a better premise. Of course, heavy 2, strength 8, AP -4, D6 damage, D6 +2 if you can get it in range. I wouldn't recommend taking the multi-melter on the assumption that you will get it into half range, because yes, you will if your opponent comes towards you, but your opponent doesn't typically want to come towards you if they can help it, given that you're Death Guard. And saying that, they can shoot the Hellbrute from across the map. Yes, he's not got more than 10 wounds, but he's not a character. You can't do that for Death Guard, so they are going to be able to pick him off as soon as he's visible. You could have instead the Reaper Autocannon, heavy 4, strength 7, AP -2, damage 1. Don't really think that's worth it. You could go for the Heavy Bolter, heavy 6 shots, strength 5, AP -1, damage 2. In the Age of Armour of Contempt, I don't really think it's worth taking that. You could go for the Twin Las Cannon, which I think is probably a decent shout. Heavy 2, strength 9, AP -3, damage D6. That does afford your Hellbrute the ability to sit very far back with that 48-inch range, and probably is the one loadout where you will find your Hellbrute survives for the first 3 turns of the game. But even so, once they get in range, they will look to take it out. But either way round, my point with this is that you can't make them a committed gun platform. They're still going to have a melee option, so ideally you'd still want to get them in range to fight. They can have the Hellbrute Fist, which will hit at strength 12, AP -3, damage 3. They do get an extra attack if you equip them with the double fists. My reason for being against the double fists is just, again, they're not that durable. There's no invuln to speak of. They've got a 3-up save with Armour of Contempt. Many weapons in the game will put them on a 5-up or a 6-up in terms of anti-tank fire that your opponent will shoot at them. So ultimately, they're going to be on a 5-up or a 6-up most of the time your opponent's shooting with any real intent. and that just isn't that durable. Even with the -1, I would be much happier with the likes of a Plague Burst Crawler or a Blight Hauler that has that guaranteed 5-up invuln. So even if it's something like a heavy Plasma Incinerator that can hit AP 5 in the first turn, you're still going to be getting that 5-up, whereas the Hellbrute would certainly not. They would be getting killed. They do have Frenzy, so when they've taken at least 1 damage, they can reroll wound rolls of 1, which is very nice, because that's both shooting and melee. So they don't have plague weapons. They wouldn't otherwise be getting that outside of cyclic corrosion. So it's kind of nice that they proc cyclic corrosion for themselves just by being hurt. But again, they have got some other weapon profiles here, which I don't really think are worth going through. If you've got the model and you want to run it, it can get work done, but they just don't do as much as other choices. And given that those other choices have all come down in points as well, there's no real reason to take the Hellbrute over them unless it's because you've got that model and not the others. And if that's the case, don't feel bad about running them. They can still get the job done, but they're just not going to do it as well as other choices. The other option there being the Death Guard Possessed, very similar to Plague Marines now. They're 3 additional points per model against Plague Marines, which puts them in a very unfavourable position because all you're getting for that is 2-inch extra movement, and they do hit at Strength 5, but your Plague Marines now all get free melee upgrades and can hit higher than Strength 5 if that's what you're looking for. They do have 4 attacks base, but again, if you go in with a melee Plague Marine squad, your Plague Marines would have 3 arguably on better profiles, so an extra 1 attack there isn't necessarily worth much. Their melee profile would be to hit at Strength 5, AP 2, Damage 1. They do have a 5-up invuln, which is one thing in their favour against the Plague Marines, but as much as I would rather have that when we're talking about a Hellbrute versus, say, a Blight Hauler, I would much, and again, a lot of what goes into that is that there are stratagems as well, specifically to save Blight Haulers, and the fact that your Plague Burst Crawler can just be at a much further range for the majority of the game and will still be effective with all of its weapons, whereas the Hellbrute is basically losing its melee potential unless you move it up the board. The Death Guard Possessed, the point of them is that they're that bit quicker. They could maybe start at the edge of the deployment zone and make it to that central objective turn 1 with an advance in a lot of cases. But again, I don't think you really need to commit to that. You've got units like your Terminators that are going to be very, very durable on that central objective. The Death Guard Possessed, they just fall into that weird niche of being more expensive than Plague Marines, but not obviously more effective in melee, and less expensive than the Blight Lords, but nowhere near as durable and in fact far more comparable to Plague Marines in that regard. So sadly, both the Hellbrute and the Possessed, I don't think we'll see play too much outside of just, I've got this many points left and I've got these models, I'm going to use it, which is as good a reason as any, but I don't think the most effective reason to pick a unit for the army. So sadly, Hellbrutes and Death Guard Possessed, I don't think we'll see them. We will certainly see them in the likes of Thousand Suns and Chaos Space Marines, I'm sure. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time in the Underhive.